with not more ado, I'll just move into the first slide. So to introduce who's on the call from Silwood, we have myself. My name is Roland Bullivant. I look after sales and marketing for Silwood Technology, and I'm joined by Nick Porter, who's our technical director and one of the founder directors of the company, who will be doing the technical demonstration and giving some technical information about Sapphire with Salesforce a little bit later. For the next 15-20 minutes or so, you're stuck with me, I'm afraid. So what I want to do is talk about why metadata is important in a Salesforce environment, particularly in an agile development environment, and then talk about Sapphire, and then we'll show you the product, and then we'll just wrap up and close, and there's one or two takeaways for you at the end of the session as well. So just as a little bit of introduction, I'm sure Salesforce as a company needs no introduction to anybody. However, it's evolved and grown from what was originally a departmental tactical solution for sales and marketing departments to help them manage their customer relationships way back in 1999-2000 into what is now an enterprise application platform, I guess you could say. I remember working at Siebel back in the early 2000s, and Tom Siebel, who founded and ran Siebel, wasn't too worried about Salesforce at the time. He sort of thought it would probably go away, which obviously it hasn't, whereas Siebel has now been subsumed into the Oracle application package environment. The Salesforce has grown as an organization. It now boasts something like 150,000 customers, thousands of partners. Last year, its revenues topped $6.67 billion, which is, I think, the fastest growth to over $5 billion of any software business. And it now also has customers who have multi-million-dollar contracts with them. So they sign up for software as a service. They sign up for multiple years for thousands of users who will be using the platform and using the software. And so it's no longer that tactical, departmental, easily implemented, easily thrown out if it doesn't work application. It's moved on significantly from there. So if you look at the sort of idea of it being an enterprise class application now, the logos on the right I've stolen from Salesforce's own website. There's many household names, large global organizations, some of which you can see there, are very few of which you can see there, who are implementing or have implemented what's effectively mission critical systems based on the Salesforce platform. Many of these have multiple instances, and I'll talk about one or two specific examples later. Many of them have very heavily customized Salesforce environments. But as that's grown, as those applications have been brought in to replace or augment the on-premise traditional applications from Siebel or whatever, and as those organizations have moved that data to the cloud, so some of the problems that you would associate with large enterprise class applications start to raise their heads. So for example, how do you integrate this customized or these customized applications in with the other applications that we have in our environment? And it starts to become, rather than, as I said, that tactical, easily managed, easily administered application for a department or a small business unit, it starts to become an information management headache as you start to need to integrate, to govern the data, to manage the data, to master it, etc. So that's one area where having an access to data model, understanding the data model becomes critical, and we'll explore that in a bit more detail later. The other side of the Salesforce environment, or the Salesforce ecosystem, if you will, that's grown particularly in the last 5 years or so, is the app exchange and the level of interest and investment in Salesforce by systems integrators, the large systems integrators, and by a wide variety of application vendors. Some of those are mentioned there. So the vendors, the people the companies that have developed and built applications for specific markets or for specific business applications on the Force.com platform, such as Viva, which is healthcare focused, Financial Force, which, as you can possibly imagine, is to do with finance, general ledger, purchase ledger, etc., and Rootstock, which is more of a general ERP application. They have all built large, relatively complex systems which run on the Force platform, and so customers can then purchase those and augment them, and they become instantly integrated with the Salesforce platform. Companies such as Accenture, Capgemini, Cognizant, PwC, Deloitte have large Salesforce practices. Accenture's, I think, is over 6,000 people now certified for Salesforce globally. I think Deloitte have 28 different practice offices around the world. Cognizant build a variety of applications on the Force platform, as well as have a large Salesforce practice which delivers services and to implement and customize and develop applications for their corporate customers. All of this is adding to the complexity of the data model that, again, IT or the CIO, the CDO, whatever, will have to manage as time goes on, and it becomes more and more critical that that data is managed, given especially as a lot of it is customer facing. With Agile Development, what we've noticed here at Silwood Technology is often when we are talking to customers, prospective customers, partners who are interested in learning more about how Sapphire can help make their lives easier, what we're finding is that the Agile methodology, the Agile Development methodology, is becoming more and more common, more and more commonplace, if you will, as being the method that people are using when developing Salesforce-based applications, either from scratch or to add value, add customization to what they've already bought. The reason for that is because the Agile Development, it provides a very rapid response mechanism, if you will, or a rapid way, fast, effective way of responding to business problems, to business needs, to changes in business needs, using the Scrum methodology. For those of you who might not know, Scrum methodology is really using small cross-functional teams, so that's teams made of people from different departments, different areas of the business, technical, administrative, business, whatever, typically not more than about 10 people in a team, and they bring those teams together to deliver the product or the enhancements required. And obviously, if understanding of the data is critical for that team, perhaps in terms of an integration or migration project, then it's important that those members of the team have access to the data models that they're working with, and access to the Salesforce data model, as you'll see later, is not particularly easy. And so it's important that they have access to that model, preferably in some sort of logical format, so that they're able to see how it relates to business terms. And then the development itself during an agile environment, or in an agile environment, is really working in what they call sprint, or what are called sprint sessions. And a sprint session is a fixed length or a time-bound development process or development window for iterations of a product or development, and the product or the iteration is built, tested and delivered during that time. And typically that time is between 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, but very rarely would it go beyond that, because it's not the way the Agile methodology works. And of course, understanding the data model in that capacity, in that context, is absolutely vital, especially, again, if you're doing any integration, migration work, any data warehousing. If any of that type of requirement is part of the development, part of the product or the iteration you're building, then it's critical that you understand the data model. And if you think about the fact you might be building data models, or you might be changing the data model on a monthly or a fortnightly or a 2-monthly basis, as each sprint session progresses, then it's absolutely important that people have rapid, easy access to the data model, up-to-date access to the data model as implemented, so including all the customizations, and are able to see how it's changed from previous versions, just to check that the product is moving forward in the right way. So there's a number of reasons why understanding that data model is absolutely critical. And there's some potentially, I guess, if you don't implement, or if Scrum and Sprint is not implemented properly with the right level of controls and standards, then you can end up with a bit of a mess data-wise, and does that then lead to data management issues later down the line? So access to data model in terms of an agile environment, we see as actually critical. And if you take all of that together, if you bring that together in terms of enterprises, large enterprises developing or buying larger and larger Salesforce applications, if you bring together the fact that there's systems integrators, adding complexity, adding customizations to that, to those applications, and there's vendors bringing new applications to the App Exchange for people to buy and integrate in with their existing Salesforce environment. And then you bring in the fact that people want to do this quickly, they want to develop things quickly, they want to be able to make changes to affect and reflect the business needs. Then understanding this metadata is a challenge which needs to be solved. And just doing simple things like comparing a data model from one version or one instance of your system to the next, without an automated tool, can take days or even weeks, meaning that the sort of sprint approach just wouldn't work. And the headache is metadata is critical for enterprise information management. It's critical from any of the typically for any of the products or applications that companies are using to deliver integration, to deliver reporting, to deliver big data projects, data lakes, whatever, to connect applications, to consolidate applications, to integrate them. There is a level of requirement of an understanding of the metadata of all those packages and systems that companies have in-house or that they use, whether in-house or in the cloud. Companies need access to that metadata. Data professionals need access to that metadata in order to deliver those projects. And Salesforce is no different in that respect, particularly when it's been developed, customized, and had other applications to it. We often ask the question, where's the data? Or we say that Sapphire answers the question, where's the data? And this is an interesting survey done by Dimensional Research and Progress in 2015 that suggested that application and data source integration was the most pressing challenge for Salesforce customers. I would add to that incorporating Salesforce into a business intelligence data warehouse project or initiative, especially where the Salesforce model has been customized, incorporating it with data governance or data quality, bringing it into a master data initiative, or consolidating Salesforce instances would all be very, very important. And all of those initiatives require the question, where's the data, or where do I put the data, to be answered. In terms of migration into Salesforce, then clearly you would need to know where to put the data from a legacy system into Salesforce. So an understanding of that data model is still important. Just as an example, when we obviously have a product, otherwise we wouldn't be talking to you today, but when we started to look at Salesforce, the interesting thing was we kept being asked to develop a version of Sapphire for Salesforce. And what was interesting was that we never felt that it was really necessary, because until we learned more about Salesforce, we didn't realize that a Salesforce application could have more than a couple of hundred tables. And so you might think, as we did early on, that that this wasn't necessarily a good use of our development capability or Salesforce or Sapphire in order to do this. However, over the period of time, we've encountered customers and sold Sapphire to customers who have Salesforce environments that have over 1,000 or 2,000 tables, and we have one customer at the moment we're talking to who has close on 3,500 tables in their Salesforce environment, and they've been developing that system themselves. So if you look at the comparison there with packages such as Siebel and JD Edwards, then you can see that problem of trying to access and understand and make use of the data model that underpins the Salesforce application can be absolutely critical in that environment, and without some way of navigating and finding it, it can become a drag on the project. We also come across customers with multiple instances. One of the first ones we worked with in the UK was a European organization which had, I think it was 16 different instances of Salesforce across Europe. And there was one chap at the center, at head office, who was trying to manage those different Salesforce instances, understand the difference in the data models to enable reporting and integration. Of course, that was a big problem for them. We also came across an organization recently who have over 50 instances of Salesforce, and one of their challenges is to try to consolidate those into a single or into fewer instances, and understanding the data model or understanding the data at a data model level, at a metadata level, is clearly critical to being able to achieve those jobs. So whilst we thought originally it wasn't going to be relevant, it's now Salesforce for Sapphire for Salesforce is now our most popular evaluation download, even outstripping SAP, which up till recently has been by far the most popular version of the product. So there are, if you've only implemented Salesforce, or if a company's only implemented Salesforce with very limited customizations and only has a couple of hundred tables, then probably the Salesforce schema builder, which I'm showing you now, will probably do the job. To be honest, you can do a quick find to see what you're looking for, and it shows the links. It's quite nicely laid out. It's a problem, however, if you've got lots of instances, because trying to understand this in terms of lots of instances isn't really going to work. Or if you've added, say, 200 or 300 or 1,000 or 3,000 tables, this is not going to be a very effective or valuable way of looking at the data model and the metadata that underpins the system. And some of the limitations we found with Salesforce as modeling its own metadata, its own data model, is you can't save what you've been looking at. So you go in fresh every time, having to start from scratch. There's no way of saving anything you've looked at or any search criteria or anything like that. You can't share with other tools. There's no way of exporting what you've found or exporting the model out to a more traditional modeling tool such as Irwin or EL Studio Power Designer, or even out to other metadata management tools such as Rocher from ASG or anything like that. There's no effective way, there's no way of doing that. It's very difficult to navigate and search as the model grows and evolves, as I'm sure you can imagine. really want to be able to do is to have something that allows you to focus on particular business areas and then find the models or the model that's relevant to that and then save that, which is actually our concept of a subject area in Sapphire, and we will show you that in a minute. And there's no comparison features, so you can't compare what was our Salesforce data model like last week or last month or last year, and what was it like, how does that compare with it now? And there's no row count. One of the things that's very, very useful in modeling is being able to understand which tables are actually being used, which ones have data, which ones don't have data, as being a way of helping to scale your model to focus on the things that are particularly important. And the implication of this lack of access and understanding is you could end up with projects being late, budgets overrunning as you spend more and more time trying to compare different versions of the product or different versions of your Salesforce instance, lower productivity from your Agile teams because they don't understand the model, and therefore you end up potentially with quality issues. And one of the most dangerous things of all is the business starts to lose faith in what's being done, what's being not delivered, I guess, and goes off and buys something different again, another tactical solution, which may not be the right thing for the company. So Sapphire is the only dedicated solution on the market for metadata discovery in packaged applications. And our goal, if you like, is to shorten the time to value for projects that involve complex data models from packages such as Salesforce and SAP, etc. And to reduce the time, the cost, and frankly the sheer drudgery of data discovery in doing it in the sort of manual ways of trying to find documentation or asking experts or whatever, and improving the accuracy and improving the faith that the business has in what's being delivered. We do that by putting the data professional in control of finding, using, and accessing the metadata, the data model in context of their project, when they want to look at it, when they want to need it, and being able to do the things they need with that metadata in terms of sharing it with other tools to make it useful and valuable as it should be. And what we do is, what Sapphire does is it reverse engineers it, discovers and then exports the data, the metadata from Salesforce and Force-based applications as implemented, and that's the key thing. So it includes all the custom tables and changes that have been made, and then brings that into Sapphire where the data professional, the user, can navigate and search and analyze and do visualization and comparison, and find exactly what they need so that they know where their data is, they know what their data does, so that they can then use that in a variety of different projects and save time and cost in analytics, integration, migration projects, and also to share that information with modeling tools such as Irwin, ER Studio, Power Designer, tools such as Informatica, Adaptive, ASG tools, and Analytics DS, a whole range of different technologies that benefit from having or from being given the metadata in reasonable sized chunks from these application packages, including Salesforce. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Nick, who's going to
That's great. Roland, thanks very much. So I've just got one slide, I think it is, to show you, and then we'll actually have a quick look at Sapphire with the Salesforce system. And so how do we go about getting the metadata out of the Salesforce system? So with the other packages that we that we address, things like SAP and PeopleSoft and Siebel, we're using some form of SQL. In the case of SAP, it's SQL embedded within ABAP code. In the case of something like Siebel or PeopleSoft, we're actually using SQL calls to interrogate the data dictionary. Now, Salesforce is a cloud-based system. So whilst I believe that there is an Oracle database somewhere underneath the Salesforce system, that's not accessible. You can't directly access the Salesforce system using SQL calls. So we use the WSDL API, the metadata API, to connect and extract metadata from the Salesforce system. Now, one of the advantages of that is it's very easy to set up. All you have to do is give it a URL and some user details, a login and a password, and there's something called a security token as well you have to have. So very standard connection properties for a Salesforce system. That's all you have to do to connect to a Salesforce instance. And then we reverse engineer it. We pull the metadata out. As Roland mentioned, we get not only the standard tables, but any customizations, columns, the relationship, the joins between tables. And given that Salesforce systems are relatively small, as Roland described, especially compared with something like SAP that's got 90,000 plus tables, that's pretty quick to do. You can reverse engineer a Salesforce system really just in a few minutes. And then once that's done, once the reverse engineering's done, you can use Sapphire's features like you can for the other packages that we support to search and slice and dice and subset into more manageable groups, and then you can export those into a range of environments. And I'm going to show you some of these features in a minute. Another thing that Roland talked about was the ability to compare metadata from different systems, and we found this is one of the most compelling reasons that customers find to buy the product, is being able to do this comparison to see what the differences are between two different instances. And again, I'm going to show you that very briefly in a second. So let's come out of PowerPoint and we'll switch into looking at the Sapphire environment now. So I'm going to show you a fairly standard Salesforce system. It's largely the standard set of Salesforce tables that you get. There are a few little customizations to it. And if we were doing the extract, I'll just very quickly show you that, as I was mentioning earlier, the connection properties are defined on this screen here. You have to have the URL of the instance you're attaching to. You have to have this login information, and that's basically all you have to have to do the extraction. But we've already done that in this particular instance. We've actually reverse engineered the metadata. So we can now start to look at the result. And those of you on the call who may have seen Sapphire before with other environments will recognize this screen where you can list all the tables that have been reverse engineered. And as you can see at the bottom there, in this particular system, there's only actually 263 tables. And Roland mentioned some of the other customers we've worked with have got multiple hundreds, some in cases thousands of tables that they've added to their own system. And you'll also see there's a table type, so most of these are standard. If I sort that in descending order, you can see there's some custom tables, just a handful of custom tables. At the top there, let's put it back into default search mode. Excuse me. And also Roland mentioned that you've got this row count, so for each table we can see how many rows there are in the table. this is purely a development system. There's not a lot of data in it because we only use this for development. And you can also see from these columns here the number of related tables. So for instance, here's the account table in Salesforce. It's got 36 child tables. So it's a parent. It gives its primary key as a foreign key to 36 other tables in the system. And it receives foreign keys. So it has 2 parent tables. It receives foreign keys from 2 tables. So let's have a look at the structure of account. We can drill into that. Salesforce tends to use surrogate keys. You'll find that each table has got ID as the single attribute primary key, which you can see at the top there. And then you've got things like foreign keys. For instance, there's a self relationship here from account, an involution if you like. So you can see that the parent to this particular foreign key, if you look at the top here, is account itself because it's a self relationship. You've got some attribute definition stuff down here in this description here. So fairly easy to understand what this table's about. Let's go back to the list of tables and let's sort the results set by number of relationships. And this is one of the features I like most about the product, is being able to sort by number of relationships. And what I found across the whole range of packages that we address is when you do that, you automatically get a lot of the more important tables coming to the top of the list. So in this case then you can see things like contact and account and opportunity and lead and case. These are very key Salesforce tables. Because they've got lots of child related tables, they come up to the top of the pile, if you like, because of those number of relationships. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to make a subject area. I'm going to make like a Venn diagram, a grouping of tables. So I'll call this subject area the exciting name of webinar demo, because that's what we're doing today. And then I'm going to take some of these key tables. I'm going to take contact through to case, and I'm going to put those into the subject area. So I've made my own little grouping of tables. You can make as many of these subject areas as you like. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that subject area and I'm going to export it. And I can export that into a range of different environments. So I'm going to take the webinar demo. I don't want this one that I used last time I did a demo. And I can now push this into a range of different tools. Now, what I'm going to do to start with, Sapphire has its own very simple built-in ER diagramming capability. It really is just a diagram, but it's often quite nice to see a sort of quick view of what the tables look like. So we'll choose that to start with, and then we do an export, and then we get a very quick Visio-like data model based upon that set of tables. And at the moment we're showing this model at purely at the primary and foreign key level. We could switch on all the attributes. Quite a lot of the tables in Salesforce have got quite a lot of attributes in the tables, as you can see here. So I find that the primary and foreign key level display is quite a nice way to quickly get a kind of overview, a feeling for how that model hangs together. And we could save the model, but it's just a diagram. In the case of the ER diagram, it's just a diagram. Let's do the same thing, but let's put it out into something a little bit more industrial strength. Let's use Irwin to make a model. So we'll do the same kind of thing. We'll make an Irwin model called webinar demo, And again, it'll take the set of tables in that subject area, and it will use the Owen API in this case to make a model. And it's just writing the model now. And what it's also going to do, it's going to start Irwin for us. It's going to prompt us to start Irwin, and then we'll see the model actually appearing. So it's just writing the model now. It's finished, and it says, do you want to open up Irwin and look at that model in Irwin? And I do want to do that, so I'll say OK to that. And so it's now starting up Irwin. You see Irwin starting up now. If we were to push this into something like Power Designer or EL Studio, the result would look a little bit different, but it's essentially the same. So now we've got the model in Irwin, and we can use one of Irwin's nice layout features. And again, we're looking at the same set of tables, but now shown as an Irwin model. Those of you on the call who know products like Irwin will probably be familiar with how this looks. So we could do that for any of the tables that we see in the system. So the last thing I want to show you is the comparison capability that Roland also mentioned. So what you can do with the comparison capability is you can compare metadata from two different systems. And in order to do that, you make a subject area of the tables that you want to compare from those two systems. And that could be the entire system. You could put all the tables from both systems into two different subject areas and then do a comparison, or you could do a subset. And in this particular case, I've got subsets. So I've already made the two subject areas, and I'm now going to do a comparison between the two. These come from two slightly different implementations of Salesforce. And you use these selectors here to decide how you want to do the comparison. So you can do things like compare data typing. I could, if I put on these check boxes down here, I could compare where there are data type differences. I've got selected for attributes the logical name differences. In other words, the descriptive name. Show me where the descriptive name for an attribute is different. Things like relationships, I've got those checked off at the moment, but I could do comparisons down at that level. And then if I do the start, now I will see in this display the differences between the sets of metadata in the two systems. So you've got the first system model A in this column, and the second system model B in this column, and then you've got the common object name over on the left here. So for instance, there is a table called Apex Page. It's got an attribute called is available in touch, and the label on that attribute, the descriptive name if you like, is slightly different. So on the first system it's called available for Salesforce mobile apps. On the second one it's available for Salesforce mobile apps and lightning pages, whatever that might mean. Down here we've got another entity, flow interview, another table, and there is an attribute called owner ID which exists on the second system but doesn't exist at all on the first system. Conversely, there is an attribute hashtag definition which exists on the first one, doesn't exist on the second one. And you can see other sort of similar changes as we scroll through. And then down towards the end, there's a whole bunch of entire tables which exist in the second system but don't exist in the first system. You've got a search thing along the top there as well if you wanted to. If you had a bigger result set, you can search for strings to pick things out from this report, and you can also save the result set. You can push this out into CSV. You could perhaps bring this into something like Excel and do some further analysis within Excel. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. If there are any questions, if you'd like to use the chat feature in GoToMeeting to ask any questions, we'd be happy to take those. So it seems you're all happy. Good. If that's the case, then we will, first of all, I'm going to pass you back to Roland, who's going to just summarize. Thanks very much for your time.
Hello, and thank you. I hope that was useful for you. Just to quickly have a look at how Sapphire works with Salesforce metadata, and I hope you can see how it bears out some of what I was talking about earlier in terms of the ability to understand and find the metadata that's relevant for particular projects, particular initiatives, very quickly and easily, and then to share those with a variety of other tools and technologies, including obviously the modeling tools, but products such as Samantha and ASG and Adaptive and all the others as well. In fact, if you want to look at our website, there's a partner section which will describe some of the partners that we have, or I think all the partners that we have almost, and how their technologies work with ours, or how Sapphire works with their technologies. The slide you have in front of you is purely by way of giving you some comfort, I guess, that your organizations are not alone, that other companies have used Sapphire for accessing ERP metadata from all sorts of different packages, SAP, Oracle, and Salesforce, and there's a selection on there of everybody. So the product is well proven, it works, and it delivers the value that we promote. So just one final slide. In terms of the benefits, obviously we believe that Sapphire helps those people who are delivering Salesforce applications, so that's customers, partners, faster and more cost-effective implementation, and helps Salesforce to fulfill its role in an enterprise information management ecosystem, so that it fulfills that role to, that it can be more easily integrated, that data can be understood and used in mastering, in data quality, data governance, data integration projects, and data warehouse BI projects quicker and more easily. And obviously, because of the Sapphire's metadata capabilities, if you're moving or migrating from, say, an Oracle package, Siebel, into Salesforce, then being able to understand the Siebel metadata and knowing how that's structured and what's used, and then being able to see where that would end up going into a Salesforce environment would be a value, and would speed up that data discovery, source data and target data analysis that you would need to do during that project. So finally, thank you very much for your time and attention today. If you would like to do something next, you can go onto our website. There are areas on the home page. You can book a call with us to discuss Sapphire and your particular requirements in more detail. You can arrange a demonstration, or you can download a free trial of the software. And at the bottom there, we have a new Blore paper that's literally just hot off the press, the importance of understanding Salesforce data models, which obviously reinforces what we've been talking about today. It's not on the website, it's not generally available just yet, but if you would like a copy, if you just email info@silwoodtechnology.com and ask for that, we'll send it to you. You will also get an email in the next 2 or 3 days with the link to the recording and the link to the slides as well. So I hope that's been useful, and look forward to speaking to you again. Thanks very much.